Hello. Okay, so I've been doing a lot of cooking videos, and I've been enjoying them, and they're fun. But now I'm gonna do a little bit of baking. That's a whole different. It's a whole different techniques and methods, and just a whole different new way of being in the kitchen. That's why in kitchens, professional kitchens, they have Chef Arte, they have Chef Garde-Manger, they have chef, they have the executive chef, they have chefs for each, pastry chefs, they have pâtissier. I mean, they have all kinds of chefs. Did I say that right? I don't know if I did, but anyways, they have different kinds of chefs in the kitchen, and I'm going to be doing a little bit of baking, and it's going to be fun! Okay, so let's get started. Let's wash our hands and let the fun begin, right? Okay. So I'm going to wash my hands real quick. And I'm going to be doing a couple of things. I'm going to be doing two parts of this video. I'm going to show you, I'm going to share a little bit, so it'll probably be a 2-3 clip parts to this video. Anyway, so I'm going to show you how to make a wild yeast water bread. What's a wild yeast water? Basically, it goes way back to the earlier days when bread was being made. Bread could be made out of its own flour, or it could be made out of wild yeast water, which is you can take herbs, you can take peelings of fruit that has some yeast on it. I wouldn't recommend the pineapple peelings, but what's really high in yeast are the grapes. You could use, people use coffee, for crying out loud. You could use raisins, you could use tomato peeling, depending on what kind of bread you're going to be making. You could use, it's something that it's worth looking into. It's wild yeast water, wild yeast water, water yeast, water yeast, wild yeast water. Anyways, wild yeast water is basically fermented water that has yeast, and that's how people make their kombucha. I'm getting over a cold right now, so yeah, not a good winter for me. But anyways, I have a couple bottles here, and this one I made, and how it's made is I made this, and you can see on some of my clips, you'll see that, ooh, it's bubbling. It's kind of exciting. And basically these are the little bubbles in there. These are the peelings of a persimmon, and you take the persimmon, you peel it, you put it in about that much of persimmon, for example, the persimmon peelings, and then you put distilled water, and then you put a little bit of sugar, depending on how much sugar is in the persimmon. And I wouldn't wash the peelings. I would go to a local vendor or store if you know that there's no chemicals in it, and just use it. Just get it organically if you can, and then go ahead and put it in the water, and just I put a little bit of sugar in it, and organic sugar. You could use a granulated sugar, but I put the organic sugar, and then you just shake it up like this, and you leave it on the counter, and every day you shake it up. You can hear the little bubbles, and then you put the cap back on, you shake it up again, okay, and it needs to breathe, and you just set it on the counter, and you do that for about a week. If it's real hot, then I would put it in a room temperature area. I wouldn't do it too hot. Well, if it's real hot, actually the heat will activate the yeast right away. So, but you know, it's cold. So, and I had it pretty much. You do this up to a week. And then what will happen is that the peelings will separate. The peelings will separate and the peelings will float. And you'll see a whole bunch of water, and then if you open it, I did it the first time and it blew up. It was kind of cool. Well, it was still, the temperature was still kind of warm in our, the climate was still kind of warm. So I added just a little bit of sugar in there, and I left it on, and I shook it up, you know, every day, and left it on the counter and shook it up every day, and that's it. And so I did it for about a week, and then finally when the bubbles started to sizzle, they started coming up, and I can see the bubbles. It's pretty cool. So it could take a couple days up to 10 days depending on how much yeast is actually on the peeling. And again, you could use raisins, you could use nuts. I mean, it's crazy. I didn't realize how much yeast was in all our foods. I did one with herbs. That was pretty nice because then I made pizza out of that dough. And then this is my water. And then after you use it, you can continually feed it. You can put a little bit more distilled water. But I just get a whole new batch. But it's up to you. And you can put a little bit more sugar if you want. But I keep these in my refrigerator and call it a day. I put them back in the refrigerator. Now what happens is when you get ready to make your starter, like your sourdough starter, which is what we're going to do. I'm going to do a Persimmon sourdough starter. The other one flopped because I don't know why it flopped. It just did. So, and that's the thing. It depends on the temperature. It depends on the flour that you use. It depends on hydration. It's a whole different way of baking, which is, you know, can get a little, but I'm still kind of like learning. So as I'm learning, I'm going to share how to do that. And then we'll do a sweet potato pie, which I've been meaning to make, to show you how to make. And so anyways, this is an overflow. So after you get your wild yeast water, you drain it, you use a little colander like this, right? And you put it in, you drain it. And so, and you drain it, and you put it in a bowl like this. And this is pretty, see, that's your biga, you can call it biga, your starter. That's what's going to make your sourdough right there. Ah, it smells so good. And so, and it's important that you know your flours as well. And I like, let's see, get my chopstick. So I like using my chopsticks, but you can see how that has its real glutinous there. So, it's nice. So I do half flour and half of the wild yeast water. So, let me see. So I have all kinds of flours. It's important that you know your flours. This is I just bought this. This is my whole wheat high protein, and that's what I used. And I used a whole wheat high protein with a little bit of AP flour, which is your all-purpose flour. So I use a little bit of that. So and you could do half and half. And then actually you can also make it. You could just put the strawberries, the raisins or the grapes, and you could stick it in there and put the distilled water, and then it'll bubble up because there's like yeast in our stuff. Didn't know you were eating all that yeast, right? And this is like all-purpose flour, and then I have some bread flour, so I'm going to use some of that bread flour for this one. And this is a whole wheat pastry flour. I like playing with flour. Oh, this is brown rice. Oh, okay, got that. Must have got that for pancakes, because what I want to do is I want to show you how to make flapjacks, which they use starter for flapjacks. It makes it a little bit cushy. Didn't know, huh? I didn't know. So anyways, so here we go. I'm going to look for my my bread flour. There you go. Okay, so I'm going to take my bread flour, okay? And so what you do is I've done a couple of recipes. I've kind of searched for some recipes, trying to find the right recipe. So I found a couple recipes that I'm going to be kind of piggyback off, and then I'm just going to kind of wing it. And so I got this. Ew. So I'm going to put a cup of that in there. A cup of my biga or my sourdough starter. Put a cup of that. And then you don't want to discard this. This is like gold. So what you want to do is you want to feed it. Yeah. So I got a jar, and I'm going to put the rest of this in there. And you can find some videos. There's a whole bunch of videos on wild yeast and starters, and there's different methods and different ways of doing it. And I found that this is pretty much the easy way of doing it. So I'm going to put some of that in there. Okay. And see, and I also mark it. So I want to keep, kind of make sure. So I put down, like, the wild yeast water was on 12/31, which was last month. And I put, that's where it started. And then the starter, where I began the starter, is 131. So 131. So I had the yeast water in the refrigerator for a while. I had it on the counter, and then I had it on the refrigerator. You got to be careful you don't get bacteria and all that stuff in there. And it's important that you have a scale, because a lot of the recipes in baking, you need a scale, because there's volume, quantity and volume. There's a difference in quantity and volume. But if you have a recipe that says cups, then you're in luck. So I'm going to go ahead and add, let's see, this is one cup of sourdough starter with 6 cups of flour. And then it's saying that I need to add a 1.5 cup of lukewarm water. So if I were to cut that in half, so that's like lukewarm water, and then you want to put some more instant yeast in that. Now I'm going to cut that down. So I have a whole cup of wild yeast, because, and sometimes you don't even have to put any extra yeast in there. So I would say, like, so it's like a 1/2 cup and 1/8. What is that? 1/2 cup and 1/8. 1/3? No. A 1/2 cup and 1/8. A cup of lukewarm water. And so I would say that I put a good amount of, considering what I put in there. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put like 3 cups. I'm gonna put in my bread flour, which is, I'll put in, I know I sound like I don't know what I'm doing, which probably I don't. So this is all new to me. But we're doing this together, right? Okay. So I got 2 cups of bread flour in there. And then I'm going to go ahead, because I love, I want that wheat. I love wheat. Wheat flour is nice. I'm going to go ahead and put 2 cups. So I'm going in circles right now. So that was 2 cups, and I'm going to put a cup of wheat, and then I'm going to put another cup of wheat flour. High protein wheat flour, which means it's higher in protein. That's what it means. I'm such a genius when it comes to flour. Anyways, like I found that baking is so much fun, and it is fun, and as long as you know what the heck you're doing. So back to this, I'm going to feed it now. So what am I going to feed it with? So I'm just going to go ahead and put some regular all-purpose flour, because you want to feed your yeast. It's like a pet. You have it like a pet. So I'm going to put like one of those Maybe a couple of those spoons in there, right? And it seems to like, yeast seems to like the wheat better. And then I just add a little bit of my water in there. Just a little tiny bit just to moisten it up. You could do half water and half, but because I saw that that was a little bit watery. So when you first start off your starter, you want to put like, you want to do 1 to 1, which means you want to do 1 part of the yeast water and 1 part flour. I don't know if I said that, but okay. And so you just kind of mix it up. It's kind of scientific here. And see, that's a little bit hard. So I'm going to add just a little bit tiny more water. And make sure it's distilled, purified water. You don't want regular tap water on there. At least that's what I've been told. So, oops. I might have to put a little bit more flour in there, but we'll see. And it's got to be the consistency of toothpaste. So guys, if you're going to do like a science project, or if you're going to do something at school and you want to do something, you really want to, this would be a good project to do. And it's good to make your own, it's good to make your own bread. I mean, it's actually very good to make your own bread. See, and that's the consistency of toothpaste. See? Perfect. And then stick this in the refrigerator. Since it's cold, I just put it on the counter, but you have to be careful that bacteria does not set in. Now I have some here, and I've had this since last year